South Africa's decision to take Israel to the ICJ on charges of genocide has elicited polarized global responses, and critics have accused South Africa of theatre, political opportunism, as well as double standards, while supporters have lauded a principled and clear stance. RiskRecon Director and former Ambassador Dr. Kingsley Makhubela joins us now for further analysis on how this case affects our international, bilateral, as well as diplomatic relations. Doctor, a very good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time. Firstly, what do you make of the accusations against South Africa of being polarized, being political opportunists, or having double standards, double standard approach in this case?
Good evening, Tanta. The question is, it's not South Africa that is polarized, it's the nature of the conflict itself. It's so polarized because it's an intractable conflict that has taken many years. So by nature, you would find people who have taken certain positions around this. So South Africa is actually the center of this as one of the interested parties that really wants to try to bring an end to this conflict. So the fear that other people have had over the years to take on this matter is totally different. So South Africa is doing what is actually mandated in terms of its obligation to the ICJ statutes.
Look, Doctor, let's talk about how this will potentially affect relations with particularly Israel as well as its major backers like the US.
Before the verdict on Friday, about 210 lawmakers in the United States wrote a letter to Secretary Blinken, essentially asking that the administration should come up with efforts to denigrate and malign South Africa around international forums. As a result of that, South Africa, you would have seen that South Africa could not make it to the Human Rights Commission in Geneva. And I tend to think that it has to do with this intention to malign South Africa and all its strategic, international strategic position. It's likely to continue. Other members from the global north are likely to follow suit in terms of what the United States is doing. The question is, would South Africa have the tenacity and the capacity to resist this kind of pressure? It's something that we'll see with time.
And how would you characterize the relationship between South Africa and Israel before this whole court case, Doctor?
South Africa and Israel have had a frosty relationship for quite some time. You will recall that in 2016, South Africa recalled its ambassador. Since 2016, South Africa has had no ambassador in Israel. And South Africa later on withdrew its entire diplomatic staff. So there's that kind of a frosty relationship. Israel withdrew its ambassador sometimes last year, November. So the relationship has been very frosty.
All right. And look, Indonesia has also brought a separate case to the ICJ against Israel, while we know that Chile and Mexico are also taking Israel to the ICC. So the effects are far and reaching and simply cannot be denied, Doctor, that South Africa did have a huge influence globally by taking this stance.
Well, not only those countries. I think somewhere on the 12th, the 9th and the 12th, of February, the ICJ would listen to arguments of Indonesia. I don't recall what is the other country, but there's another country also that it's intended has approached the ICJ. So the case may gain momentum either way. You've seen countries like Germany who are saying that South Africa's case or allegations of genocide are unfounded. The United States has said the same thing. But ironically, as we're speaking, Ntlantla, is that the United States has come out saying that the findings of the ICJ are actually in line with what they have been advocating. That's very important. That's very fundamental in terms of how the Security Council may likely take a decision on this matter to give it legal effect, because without the Security Council endorsement, it remains very open and vulnerable for defiance by all the parties involved in the conflict.
And Doctor, do you think South Africa's case has actually promoted peace within the Middle East?
Well, you know, the case so far, it's all about bringing an end to the conflict that was going on. And this case was, this sitting of the court was basically to listen if there are indeed any basis for the plausible commitment of genocide by Israel. The details in terms of the substantive issues will be argued at a later stage, and that will take long. That's why South Africa argues that if there's no decision to bring an end to hostilities, the Palestinians are likely to suffer irreparable harm. And in this respect, the court has really confirmed that, and that's why the court has instructed that Israel should put systems and processes essentially to ensure that there's no genocide that is carried out in the country, that Israel must punish those who are involved in war crimes, and they've given a timeline of a month to get a report in terms of what is in place, including those who are instigating for a genocide. So it's far-reaching. I think South Africa managed to get the intention, or the intention of what they wanted. I think, Nhlanhla, people should desist from the argument that this ruling of the court can be implemented without a ceasefire, because once you start coming up with that narrative, taken to the Security Council, you are likely to get a veto.
A very quick one, Doctor. Then what risk do all these bring for South Africa in terms of global moral positioning as well as financial capital? Very quickly.
It'll be quite severe. South Africa has to stand up, and that's why I'm saying I hope the leadership will develop necessary systems and processes to resist any form of pressure for South Africa to back down on the case.